thought I'm gonna miss it if I don't do it.
I saw Gabriel panning away from me, and
he started saying, I see something, I see something.
I turned and looked out the window.
I started yelling at Gabby to stay on the shot.
And then I saw you running, and I just followed you out there.
What's going on? There's something out there.
What is that?
Look! Look there! In the water! Look, over there!
What is that?
What is that?
What is it?
Running. Keep rolling.
Where is it?
Where is it? Over there. Right over there. Keep rolling. Keep rolling.
Are you pulling? What's everybody doing? What's going on? I was running around the other side of the deck. I saw nothing. I mean, when I got to the side of the boat, I admit, I saw there was some sort of little wake in the water, which I was unclear about, but, I mean, it could have been a fish.
Welcome to the Lair of Darkness, my friends. I am your host, the Dark Lord. Today, we shall continue the discussion surrounding the legendary Loch Ness monster. We left off last discussion wondering if there are any other lakes in the world that have claimed to harbor a monster. And the answer is, fuck yeah. There are many lakes, not just in Scotland and Great Britain, but also across the U.S. that are said to be home of a monster. Lake Champlain, a 125-mile-long lake in Vermont, is supposedly home to the monster known as Champ, which is obviously a creature similar to Nessie, but due to the lack of substantial evidence, most believe it to just be a hoax in order to gain publicity and tourism. As a matter of fact, the most significant photo taken of Champ is this one, which the photographer claims is the creature with a long neck known as the Mansi photograph. Other lake monsters in the U.S. include the Lake Washington sea monster, which is Seattle's own version of Nessie, the Bear Lake monster on the border of Idaho and Utah, and Oklahoma's Lake Thunderbird. The supposed lake monster of Great Britain is said to inhabit the waters of Lake Windermere, which is the largest freshwater lake in England, at more than 11 miles long and about 1 mile wide, which is located in Cumbria County and Lake District National Park, and it is known as Bow Nessie. Although evidence supporting its existence is significantly slim, as there are only blurry photos of the supposed creature and a couple of eyewitnesses. The Lake Washington sea monster is known to inhabit the waters of, Lake Washington, near Seattle, and is known as Seattle's Loch Ness. Apparently, a local indigenous tribe known as the Wonkatilla tribe in the northwest U.S. have spoken of a giant sea creature known as the Willituck, aka the god of the ocean, after it supposedly saved their asses during the terrible earthquake and blizzard of 1736. The Bear Lake monster is known to inhabit, the Bear Lake, which is located directly on the Idaho-Utah border. However, tales of this monster have increased in recent years due to a high number of drownings. However, it is dismissed as a hoax because no species of freshwater octopus are known to exist, and because there are absolutely no eyewitness reports of such a creature. Now, let's circle back to Nessie. The evidence surrounding Nessie, as I have said before, very slim, going from sonar readings to supposed drawings and photos from eyewitness reports. However, on April 19th, 1934, the most significant photograph to date of the Loch Ness monster's existence came forth from a supposed London surgeon named Robert K. Wilson. This photo is now known as the Sergeant's photograph, due mainly to the fact that Wilson did not want his name attached to it. It shows what appears to be the creature's head, long neck, and hump of its body. For at least 6 decades, this goddamn photo was considered plausible proof of Nessie's existence until the year of 1993, when Wilson, on his fucking deathbed, revealed that it was actually a stupid-ass hoax, seeing as he used a model of the creature and attached it to a submarine built by a man named Christian Sperling, and took 4 pictures of it. Now, whether or not this photo is in fact a hoax or not is still debated to this day. Of course, most people claim that this is just a hoax because of Wilson's deathbed confession. Others who review the photo claim that the creature itself is nothing more than a diving bird, otter, or seal. Now, another thing that people wonder is how big is the Loch Ness Monster claimed to be, and what exactly does it look like? The monster itself has been described by eyewitnesses to be about 30 to 50 feet long and about 2 to 3 feet wide. It appears to be dark gray and significantly resemble a plesiosaur with a thick body and flippers that look like boat paddles. If you really think about it, odds are that there is nothing more this about it. If you really think about it, odds are that there is more than just one Loch Ness Monster is highly unlikely. Loch Ness Lake itself is the deepest lake in Great Britain and the second deepest in Scotland, after Lake Morar, at about 700 feet deep, over a mile wide, and a little over 22.5 miles long. That's a big fucking lake. The chances are that there is more than just one monster is significantly possible, seeing as in more than just one eyewitness report, the creature has been known to have 2 or more humps protruding from the loch. Only 60% of the loch has been significantly searched, with 40% of the loch remaining undiscovered. Most skeptics claim that that's enough to prove that Nessie does not exist. However, Nessie supporters claim that since the steep stone sides of the loch and major temperature differences within it make it increasingly harder to achieve positive scans, so there is still a lot of fucking hope that the Loch Ness Monster or monsters still exist. There have also been many attempts to capture an underwater photo or video of the creature in its natural environment. On the nights 7th and 8th of August 1972, 3 Nessie supporters named Robert Rhines, Martin Klein, and Tim Dinsdale went out on the loch with underwater camera equipment in an effort to take photos and the videos of the beast. They were lucky enough to detect strange objects moving on a sonar chart in the nights that followed, especially on one evening when they were lucky enough to catch an underwater photograph of an object they believed to be one of the monster's flippers. They also took an underwater photograph of what appears to be the head, neck, and part of the monster's body. Many skeptics dismiss these photos as misidentifications for other animals, such as whales, seeing as Loch Ness does in fact have a small connection to the North Atlantic Sea, and it's known as the Inverness Passage. However, there are significant differences between the supposed Nessie flipper in this photo and a whale flipper, as the Nessie flipper has a more diamond-like shaped flipper, and the whale flipper has a more kitchen knife-like shaped flipper, at least to me it does. Other animals that could be mistaken for the monster include birdwakes, which is severely unlikely, eels, Greenland sharks, Wels catfish, and even elephants, though that seems to be the most unlikely. Believe it or not, plesiosaurs were not as big as you might think they were. As a matter of fact, they were far from being the largest marine reptile, as whales were far fucking bigger than plesiosaurs. The largest plesiosaur to exist was about 50 feet long and weighed nearly 100,000 pounds. And its jaws had a bite force of 33,000 pound force per square inch, which was stronger than any known creature, so you still would not want to fuck with it. Now, out of all the exhaustive and complicated searches for proof of the Loch Ness Monster's very existence, none at the time was bigger than the 1987 search known as Operation Deep Scan. During the 1960s and 70s, monster fever surrounding Loch Ness was very intense indeed, as visitors and believers in the monsters would flock around the lake in high numbers with telescopes and binocular equipment to watch over the surface of the loch, hoping to catch even a glimpse of something unusual. Unfortunately, after weeks of observing the loch for anything strange, everyone gave up hopes of seeing the monster and withdrew from the loch. However, in October of 1987, Adrian Shine, a local Nessie hunter and marine biologist, led the most massive search, well, at the time, of Loch Ness Lake to date. Within 2 days, 24 boats equipped with echo-sounding equipment swept the entire loch, hoping to detect any source of the monster to prove at last its existence. In 3 situations, the boats detected motion from unidentified objects deep within the loch, but these were dismissed as probably being debris or possibly seals that had entered the loch. The closest they had come to detecting the monster itself was when the scientists operating the boats made sonar contact with an unidentified object of an unusual size and strength. The area was then re-scanned to see if they could catch the object again, and was able to detect a large moving object 590 feet deep near Akuart Bay. It was stated that there is something far more goddamned unusual than just fish and seals living in the Loch Ness, and until the time is right, we may never be able to, well, explain it. Now, besides the fact that Loch Ness is a very nice and peaceful lake, the monster is the reason that the lake is the most famous lake in Scotland, and also one of the most famous lakes in the entire fucking world, as visitors and tourism for Loch Ness are always high mainly because of Nessie. Skeptics claim that this is the reason why people claim to have seen the monsters in other lakes, because it's a great way to replicate the successful tourism of Loch Ness to those lakes as well. Now let me ask you this. What is a good way for me to convince you that there is a monster in the murky, dark, foggy waters of Loch Ness Lake to this day without needing to use video or photographic evidence to try and prove it? The answer will be revealed in part 3 of this discussion, which of course will be continued. In the meantime, ciao, bitches.